Oh yeah, baby, lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. It's June the 6th, 2022, and we are live here from the Legacy420.com news desk. And good morning, Cindy, who's filling in for Reverend Kelly. How are you doing, Cindy?
Good morning, Al. I'm doing pretty good. How are you this morning?
Not too bad. It's a little rainy over here in Ontario. I don't know what it's like down on the East Coast, but we're in for some rain this week, unfortunately.
We've got some damp going on this morning, but it is supposed to clear up to sun tomorrow and this afternoon, and tomorrow is supposed to be another beautiful day.
Well, it's hopefully our 30 centimeters that we're expecting tomorrow, or millimeters that we're expecting tomorrow, don't hit you by Wednesday.
With any luck, I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Exactly. So yeah, Reverend Kelly, she was all ready to go this morning, and then she gave me a call that she wasn't feeling very well, and so I gave the shout out to Cindy here to come and give us a hand this morning. So we really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. It's been a few months. Let's see if I can do this again.
Yeah, no practicing this morning. Not enough time for that.
No.
Okay, well, before we get started, I want to make mention and a shout out to a friend of the cannabis community in the Toronto area who passed away over the weekend. That is Marie Tripp. I've known Marie for several years. I first met her at a boat cruise. Diane Bruce introduced me to her, and from there on in, she was right there helping us out with advocating with people and patients and stuff with Treating Yourself magazine, as well as with PACE. I got a picture here of Marie there right behind the pumpkin. That's Marie there, all smiles. She was there at the National Women's Show helping us educate people about cannabis. And unexpectedly, things turned for the worse. And, we got the word late last week that Marie wasn't doing very well. And over the weekend, she passed away. So our condolences to her family. And Marie will be missed, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So goodbye, Marie, and we know you're in a better spot, and thank you for everything that you've done over the years.
Yes.
All right. Now, when it comes to news today, we've got 10 stories, so let's get at it.
Sure.
Yes. All right. I don't know if you heard, but recently there was a breach at Ontario Cannabis Stores, and they say the data breach raises credibility and security concerns, according to Marijuana Biz Daily.
Yes, yeah. The credibility of the government-run Ontario Cannabis Store is at stake after sensitive industry data was misappropriated and leaked, according to experts. The OPP confirmed it opened an investigation earlier this month into what the OCS alleges is the theft of business data.
The data includes individual cannabis retailer sales, their inventory levels, and other sensitive information such as store license number and the amount of kilograms and packaged units sold at least the months of December and December 2021 and January 2022.
As the only legal wholesaler of cannabis in Ontario, Canada's biggest legal cannabis market by sales, industry sources said it's imperative the government-run body be seen as credible in the eyes of its clients. The more than 1,500 cannabis stores that can buy their products only, only from the OCS.
Correct. Yeah. They have a monopoly on it here, obviously, in Ontario. David Hyde, CEO of security consultant Hyde Advisory and Investments in Toronto, said the wholesaler needs to address the issue head on and identify what led to the breach. He says, to maintain their reputation and credibility, I think the OCS wants to identify and address any root cause issues of this firstly, and then send out other communications to appropriate parties, stores included, to reassure them that those that have been addressed.
Other business sources expressed concern the data could be used to exploit vulnerable store owners whose businesses aren't performing well. For example, they could be vulnerable to predatory takeover bids. They also wonder if the OCS could benefit from a permanent CEO after years of filling the position with interim, on an interim basis. Responding to queries from MJ Biz Daily, OCS Senior Director of Communications, Daffit Roderick, said immediate steps were taken to address the situation once the organization became aware of the data breach.
Yeah, he says that we restricted access to our internal data reports, commenced a comprehensive investigation to identify the source of this problem and notified the OPP, they say. The OPP is conducting its own review and investigation into the misuse of this data within the cannabis industry.
But who has the data? The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is among those concerned. The stolen data could be used for exploitative business practices. With all the stories about the cannabis retail market probably going to be consolidate, there's a bit of oversaturation. You've got to wonder exactly who has the information, said Ryan McCullough, the CFIB Senior Director of Provincial Affairs for Ontario.
And he goes on to say, are there bully offers out there? If you've got that data leak and you're looking to consolidate stores in an area, you know who to pick on, who to flex and go to. Malone also expressed concerns over other possible fallout.
He said, I heard from one business owner who was now wondering if they are doing really well. Will someone use that data and open a store across the street? Another asked, does my competitor 2 blocks away have that information? And how are they using it? Maybe not against me, but still to their advantage. He said the general feeling among the store owners he spoke with was shock, frustration, a little bit of exasperation. Like, what did you expect from the OCS kind of thing? Yet another, frustration point for them.
Shane Morris, founder of the Ottawa-based Morris and Associates Consulting, says the OCS play a pivotal role as Ontario's cannabis retail industry's wholesaler. It's the only cannabis bridge in the industry in terms of wholesale in Ontario, and if that bridge goes down, then it damages the value chain very quickly and very substantially.
Yeah, I think it's a function of a young organization. They're handling billions of dollars, and it clearly has leadership issues. They're on their 6th CEO. Wow. 6th CEO since 2018, so in 4 years. Wow. They have a lot of learning to do.
They sure do. Last March, David Lobo became the OCS 6th president in 3 years, but only on an interim basis. Lobo hasn't done any media interviews, was the organization's 3rd straight temporary chief executive since September 29, and the OCS said it initiated a search for a new CEO in early 2022.
So they're looking for number 7. Once the successful candidate is selected, OCS will issue an official announcement. The OCS's Roderick said there is definitely a credibility issue because you've got a lot of people's livelihoods in the value chain that rely on this organization. That, speaking of the OCS, whether it's licensed producers or retailers, Morris said. Fundamentally, I think the OCS has a problem with handling confidential business information. Seems
that way, doesn't it? The leak of information raises concerns about the OCS data governance model, said Ann Kavorik, Ontario's former privacy commissioner and the current executive director of the Global Privacy and Security for Design Center. Kavorik says the government can't run corporation reneged in terms of the requirements to protect the data. The data need to be strongly secured, and that's their obligation.
And goes on to say, I would urge them to add security and get security into the design of their operations so that the data can be secured and protected. A late 2021 report from the Office of the Auditor General of Ontario found that the OCS lacked a data governance component, including identification of what data the enterprise has, where the data resides, and how that data is used, and what compliance obligations apply. In response, the OCS said it is working on a data strategy that would include appropriate safeguarding and retention standards for third-party data.
One independent Ontario cannabis retailer told MJ Biz Daily the data breach represented an egregious breach of trust between the wholesaler and the retailers that depend on it. To regain that trust, experts in business security suggest the OCS needs to get to the bottom of what actually happened and come clean with the hundreds of stores that rely on its service.
At the end of the day, this is something that needs to be answered to, said Hyde, the security consultant. There needs to be reassurance that whatever it was that led to this has been addressed and identified. And right now, what it's not, an IT security breach. The OCS has said that data was stolen and not the result of a hack.
That means someone took it on purpose without even getting in the computer. Hyde says the security industry leans on a standard called the principle of least privilege. It means only those who absolutely must have access credentials to certain security or data should be allowed to have them, and the credentials need to be very tightly monitored. That's not to make sure that if you have the keys to the crown jewels, so to speak, those passwords are changed every couple of months, and there's oversight.
Yeah. The likelihood that there is more of a procedural failure or an access privilege type of issue that befell on the OCS rather than it being a weak security system that was overtaken by hackers.
Yeah, that's never good when people get when that happens. I remember when it first came out, and Genoa from the Kylax and Trichomes in Kingston, she was very upset, upset. I don't blame her.
Yeah, well, the medical cannabis community had this issue years ago, of course, and that's when they changed the systems over because patients' information was leaked all over the place.
Oh yeah, the big white envelopes, which is still a lawsuit before the courts. It's still not. There was a recent update on that, but yeah, it's still before the courts. So.
Yep.
All right, next up. This one comes to us from Kamloops this week. Operators of former Kamloops Cannabis Store fined more than $152,000.
Well then, operators of a cannabis shop that was in business without a license have been fined more than $152,000 by the provincial government's community safety unit. The store in a strip mall at Parkcrest Avenue and 12th Street in Brocklehurst was known variously at Boomer's Buds, Weeds Glass and Gifts, and Dakine Weed Glass and Gifts.
Yeah, it was raided by Community Safety Unit officers on July the 31st, 2019, and September the 4th, 2019, with cannabis being seized. Although the federal government in October 2018 legalized recreational use, license of sales was not in the North Shore store was not licensed by the government to operate as a store, and according to the Solicitor General's office, store owner Charles McCarthy was fined $86,915 via a compliance order.
Good Lord. While there was no evidence that cannabis was sold or produced at the location based on legislation, the amount of the fine was twice the value of the seized cannabis, which was pegged at $43,457.87. Another fine connected to the former unlicensed cannabis store on the North Shore was issued to the Canadian Weeds Cannabis Society.
The society was handed a fine of $65,716 after it admitted to selling cannabis without a license from the premises between July 31st, 2019 and September 4th, 2019. Proprietors of Buds or Boomer's Buds are now operating on the reserve. I'm going to mess that one up, so I'm not even going to try to say it. Across from the North Thompson River. Cannabis shops there require a business license from the ban, but have thus far been immune from enforcement by the provincial government's community safety unit.
Yeah, I know people up in BC that are going through this right now. Actually, huge fine because of the same type of issue, right? And they're trying to find ways that they can still help people without having to go through this again and have another outrageous fine.
Yeah, that's happened to Ted and the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club. Twice the amount of
Yeah.
cannabis they found on the place, they dinged them.
Yep.
Those
That's
big
going on with him
fines.
too, right? It's
Yeah,
insane. It's
yeah, it
yeah,
is. Yes,
taking
yeah.
money away
Community
from
safety
patients.
unit. Like
Yep.
you're attacking people who are helping patients.
Yep.
So, all right, on to our next story from MJ Biz Daily. This headline says, "Elimination of Couche-Tard exec takes helm of cannabis retailer Fire and Flower." I knew I'd messed that word up.
Canadian cannabis retailer Fire and Flower appointed Stéphane Trudel as chief executive officer effective immediately, the company announced on Thursday. Trudel had been senior vice president of operations for the Alimentation Couche-Tard, a Quebec-based convenience store operator that owns about 20% of Fire and Flower shares.
So, do you know who Couche-Tard is?
No.
Okay, that is you would know them more as Max Milk or Circle K.
Okie dokie. There we go.
Yeah,
I
when
had
they
no
first,
idea they were like part of the, gotten
they're
into by
part, yeah,
purchasing.
yeah, they're part ownership of them, and they're talking about store locations being very close to each other. So I've been rubbing it into our local town in Marmora because we have a Max Milk and we don't have, and we opted out of cannabis. So it'll be interesting. Will the big guy get in?
Huh.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Trudel has been the senior vice president of operations. Okay, you've gone into that. Why do we say Max Milk? Plans to boost its stake to roughly 35%, and Trudel takes the reins from Trevor Fencott, who has served as CEO since 2018.
Fencott also resigned from Fire and Flower's board of directors. Over the past 4 years, we built Fire and Flower from the ground up into one of the world's largest licensed cannabis retailers, powered by our unique Hi-Fire retail and consumer technology platform, Fencott said in a new release. We also secured and deepened our strategic partnership with Circle K, because that's what it is here in Nova Scotia, one of the world's largest retailers, to provide us with capabilities to expand globally.
Yep, and Toronto-based Fire Flower has more than 100 corporate stores in Canada. So they got lots of stores. And, Max Milk, Circle K, looks like they've got a big chunk of it, 35%.
And Circle K, Max Milk, Couche-Tard, whatever they want to call themselves, they're huge.
Yes, huge Quebec-based company, and they are, doing something with the cannabis end of things. Just so you know, you got a message, Cindy.
I see that. Hey, Carolyn.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Next on the agenda for today, story-wise, adult use cannabis reduces prescription drug demand.
Yes. Just excuse me while I get excited about this, because I am one of the people that this is true about. So
yes, same here.
It's so exciting, right? To date, legal cannabis in America has been understood one of two ways: medicine or fun, which as we learn as we go along, that even when you're having fun with cannabis, you're still medicating. So it's always medicine, right? There's medicinal cannabis requiring a qualifying condition and a doctor's recommendation before any legal cannabis can be accessed. And then there's adult use cannabis, or recreational, requiring nothing but a government issue ID proving one's age.
But what if there's a third way? Or what if, as the late activist Dennis Perron used to say, all cannabis use was medical, or at least part of the general wellness strategy? Recent research that demonstrates a drop in prescription drug use in states that legalize adult use cannabis, which, as a convenient bonus, is generally more easily and more widely available than medical, suggests this may be the case.
Weed up, pills down. In the past, the passage of medical cannabis laws has been associated with a drop of prescription pharmaceuticals. The effect of adult use cannabis laws is no small deal in East Coast states such as New York, where the medical program is small and difficult to access, thanks to tight restriction around physicians and qualifying illnesses, is less studied.
Yep. So researchers looked at the Medicaid prescriptions filed or filled between 2011 and 2019 in all 50 states. And in states that legalized adult use cannabis, they found a significant reduction in prescriptions filled for drugs meant to treat pain, depression, anxiety, sleep, psychosis, and seizures, according to the research article published in April in the journal Health Economics.
Or
Addressing how it talks about how it helps people with psychosis when people are talking about how it causes psychosis.
oh yeah, if you use it before 21, you're going to end up with schizophrenia.
Yeah,
I've so many people have heard that coming from the Canadian government is terrifying them.
Yeah, well, it's in the news right now. It's being partially blamed on a network in the U.S. for the shootings, those mass shootings in the U.S.
I saw that, yeah.
And I just shook my head.
Yeah, it's quite upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah, and here it is, reducing pills for them.
Yeah. So I mean, like, the real proof is out there, and unfortunately, reefer madness is still out there. But it is becoming less and less, thankfully. Hopefully one day we'll have it all gone. But or to put another way, legalization seems to present a significant medical benefit, along with the familiar arguments for social justice and new sources of tax revenue. People are self-medicating with cannabis, of course, and while it's hard to say for certain whether they're achieving the same results, the fact that they don't seem to be returning to pharmaceuticals is suggestive, as study co-author Shaman Rahman, a PhD student at Cornell University's Jeb E. Brooks School of Public Policy, said in a recent interview.
What legalization does is open up an opportunity to self-medicate without seeing a doctor and potentially be denied because your sickness isn't on the qualifying condition list, said Rahman, who stressed that while only Medicaid data was studied, these results are applicable to the general population. He says that there's some real evidence people are self-medicating and people aren't switching back to pharmaceuticals.
Among the drug classes studied, Rahman and study co-author Ashley Bradford, a researcher and PhD student at the Indiana University, saw the steepest drops in demand for anxiety, depression, insomnia, and psychosis meds, with drops of 12.2%, 11.1%, 10.8%, and 10.7% respectively. That's actually pretty huge.
It is. In addition to potential cost savings for Medicare programs, adult use cannabis legalization may present an additional harm reduction benefit, the researchers found, with people dropping or reducing reliance on pharmaceutical drugs with nasty side effects as easier to access over-the-counter recreational cannabis becomes available.
Oh, yeah. Harm reduction is huge. Right? We believe that quite strongly, that people are doing it because the side effects of pharmaceuticals are really frustrating, Rahman said. The findings suggest adopting both a more sophisticated and expansive understanding of adult use cannabis legalization and never neglecting the fact that no matter what you call it, cannabis generally may be a wellness product, a fact that advocates pushing for adult use cannabis legalization on the state and federal levels shouldn't neglect.
The adult use cannabis market in most states is just easier to utilize because patients don't have to pay for a patient card and they don't have to get a doctor's recommendation, said Debbie Charga, executive director of Americans for Safe Access, arguably the country's leading medical first cannabis policy advocacy group.
But as always, it is also a reminder that cannabis is badly under-researched. Key questions, including dosage and regime, remain unanswered, leaving patients, regardless of whether they're official enrollees in the state program or not, to figure it out for themselves, which is the best way, because every plant is different. And even when you go on to the next crop of the same strain, it's going to be different than the crop or the plant before. So you're going to have to redo your dosage then anyway. I think the research should be on terpenes, figuring out what terpenes help what, and then the dosage goes from plant to plant, right?
Yes, and there's more people who are looking that way towards the terpene end of things as well. Yeah. Let's see, where are we there?
We still don't know how to regulate.
That's right. So is cannabis always medical, or is it all recreational? Because cannabis is also medical, or is a third way of understanding cannabis the best classification? It's hard to say for certain, and ultimately, it may not matter. I don't like to compare, Junger says. I think this is a great example of how people are feeling the effects of the medicine, whether they recognize it or not.
Yeah. But what this does suggest is that certain forces in the cannabis industry might need to reevaluate their messaging and branding. Don't forget about the medical cannabis patients. They're part of your adult use market segment too. If you go to these business conferences, you barely even see or hear the word patient in any presentation. Chirigwe says, I do think that's being lost more and more as our industry gets bigger. They think the adult use cannabis market would be bigger than the medical cannabis market. I think they're wrong.
Yeah. But as the research suggests, the differences aren't nearly as sharp and distinct as we might have thought. Medical and adult use cannabis might turn out to be precisely the same exact thing. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, there's I don't know. I know myself. I know I saved the province lots of money by growing my own cannabis because of the fact that I didn't have any opiate drugs to take. That kept me away from the opiate drugs.
Yeah, I mean, like with me, I've quit street drugs, I've quit alcohol, and I've quit prescription drugs, which were like street drugs for me. I'm one of those people that I never should have ever taken them, right? And like, I mean, it's saved them. My prescription drugs were $5,000 a month, and I don't use any of them anymore. Unbelievable. Like, I mean, and then of course there's the health issues that I am healing and no longer have because I quit street drugs and alcohol with cannabis.
Yeah. Another message from Carolyn. Happy to see what you're doing, what you do.
Yes. I'm no longer full-time at the store, so it's nice to be doing some stuff again for sure.
Doing some stuff again. All right. Next story, last story before we go to break for the marijuana moment. Headline says New York Senate approves bill to mandate medical marijuana health insurance coverage. Cindy, mandated health coverage for cannabis.
That would be amazing. That would really be amazing. The New York Senate approved a bill on Wednesday that would require public health insurance programs to cover medical cannabis expenses and clarify that private insurers are allowed to do the same. That's amazing.
Yeah. The legislation, sponsored by Diane Savino, moved through two committees before passing the Senate by a vote of 53-10. And it's now being transmitted to the Assembly, where it awaits action in the Ways and Means Committee.
Wow. SB S 8837 would amend state public health and social services statutes to address one of the most significant barriers to patient access to medical cannabis, the out-of-pocket cost for medicine. This is something that ever since I was given my prescription, just over 8 years ago, I finally found a doctor that was compassionate and signed one. I have been fighting here in Nova Scotia to have it covered by both our public health and private health. We only have one insurer here in Nova Scotia that is willing to cover it, and they will only give you $300 a year to help with cannabis.
Oh, $300. Like even the big companies that do coverage, they do have restrictions on them. Like, for example, Sun Life, it covers it for some patients, but they have a cap of how much money you can spend in a year.
$300.
As well as what your conditions are. There's certain conditions like that are authorized now that aren't covered under insurance policies.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, so this is really exciting to see. I mean, starting to happen, and once it starts to happen, I mean, like, even though we are two different countries, but we are both here in North America, and there will be a great influence no matter who does it first.
Yeah, exactly. It can hopefully spread across the border. Maybe the winds come up north.
Yeah.
It says here that it would achieve that by defining medical cannabis as a prescription drug, covered drug, or health care service under the relevant codes, so that public health insurance providers, including Medicare and workers' compensation, would be mandated to provide coverage for private commercial insurers. However, cannabis coverage would be optional.
For thousands of patients Medical cannabis is safer and more effective medication than any other drugs, especially opiates. A justification memo attached to the bill says, while it can be prohibitively expensive for many patients, especially in the abundance of insurance coverage, it may often be less expensive than what their insurance coverage pays for other medications. Exactly. My pharmaceuticals were $5,000 a month, and I barely even pay out like $800 in cannabis.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Responding to concerns from fellow lawmakers on the floor ahead of the vote about the potential cost of the legislation, Savino said that it's time for the New York state to lead the way on this issue. Some states is going to have to force this issue. I believe that our state is the one that should lead the way on this.
Absolutely. I mean, New York is it's one of the biggest well-known areas, right? If the bill is enacted, public health insurance programs that would be subject to the proposed policy change include Medicaid, Child Health Plus, elderly pharmaceutical insurance coverages, which is called EPIC, and essential plan programs and workers' compensation, these are fantastic programs to be able to, pay for cannabis. Cost is the primary barrier to patient access in New York's medical cannabis program. Medicaid, other public health plans, and commercial health insurance plans do not cover medical cannabis, forcing patients to pay out of pocket. The justification memo continues. Some patients begin treatment only to stop due to inability to pay, while others turn to the black market. Efforts by registered organizations to offer discounts have helped, but are inadequate for many low-income patients.
That's right. It's costs.
Mm-hmm.
While there would presumably not be federal matching funds until the federal government changes its policies for programs like Medicare and Child Health Plus, the memo says that New York's Medicare and Child Health Plus programs have always covered people and services for which we do not receive federal match. So it looks like that won't stop things from happening because the federal government won't match it. So
because they're being slow, right?
Right.
Which is, it's good. New York is wanting to stand up and take care of its patients, and not just, the ones that can pay, but making sure that the ones that are in the low income sector are able to access this medicine without great, a great financial impact on them. Exactly.
That's it. Well, it's medication time. I see you got one going there already. Cindy and I will be right back. You're watching the Reefer Reporters. We're live here on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Who has huge buds? You do. If you shop at BMA Hydroponics, attend one of BMA's educational seminars and learn the secrets of growing, harvesting, processing, and consuming quality cannabis and cannabis products. Learn how to make better extracts, edibles, and medicinal creams at prices you can afford. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive, Belleville, or call 613-967-9888.
The only way to go.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
Catch the Reefer Reporters Mondays and Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live here on the Pace Radio Network.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Hey, we're back and have more stories to cover, right, Cindy?
We sure do.
Yeah, one of them includes how to protect some medical cannabis patients, how they're getting some protection down the road.
Nice.
We'll get into that as we go along. But, you know, this next story, I read the headline and I went, what? Because we're so used to being told, you know, with legalization coming on and all that and the negatives towards the black market. But according to the mayor of New York, he says, New York Mayor Adams, he says, vows to not to be heavy-handed on the illicit weed sales. He says, enjoy yourself and light up.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice. It's a green new day for cannabis dealers in the Big Apple. Mayor Adams promised on Friday to not take a heavy-handed approach towards those who sell cannabis illicitly in the city, and gave New Yorkers his blessing to smoke more pot. Well, God bless his heart.
Yeah. While New York legalized recreational cannabis use last year, the licensing system that's supposed to regulate cannabis sales isn't expected to kick off until late 2022. And Adams said Friday afternoon that he doesn't see a need for cracking down on anyone caught dealing cannabis out of stores or on the street in the interim.
Good for him. Yeah, there needs to be a system of not heavy-handedness, but going in and explaining to that store that, listen, you can't do this, and just give them a warning. You know, Adams told reporters while attending a cannabis industry expo at the Javits Center in Manhattan. Oh, look at that little...
I know. I'm just looking at that. That's quite the little card, eh?
Yes, Spy. That's a great little card. Oh, we've got a phone number too here. We can all call an order if we go down to New York.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of finding or arresting cannabis dealers, Adams said he wants the city to help steer them towards a soon-to-launch legal market. He also noted that he earmarked $5 million in his executive budget proposal for providing support to New Yorkers on applications for recreational cannabis sales and cultivation licenses.
Nice. If someone refuses to get in line after receiving a slap on the wrist for illicit weed pushing, quote unquote, though through some form of enforcement may be warranted, he said. If they refuse to adhere to the rules, then you have to come back and take some sort of enforcement action, such as a summons, such as, you know, talking about their ability to sell alcohol, he said. So the way I just read it here, if you don't go get in line. So in other words, he's going to give you a warning, and he wants you to see you making progresses towards becoming, getting yourself, quote unquote, legalized.
Yeah. Basically, they got to go in and warn people, get it to a certain point, instead of just going in and arresting people or giving them a multi-million-dollar fine.
Yep.
Going and discuss with them. Let's see, the Cannabis World Congress and Business event that Adams attended featured dozens of entrepreneurs who showcased cannabis products and held panel talks about the economic potential of the cannabis industry. In the speech at the expo, Adams joked that he was a bit disappointed that there wasn't a nice scent of weed in the room and encouraged attendants to get high.
There you go. Enjoy yourself, light up, but most importantly, spend some money, he says. We want your money. Well, he's being honest, right?
He's being honest, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he's also being open, which is the great way to get cannabis users to support you, is to let them be cannabis users, right? Exactly. A man in the crowd reacted to Adams' remark by saying he would head outside for a joint. The mayor told us we can do it, the man quipped.
Asked after the speech if he ever smokes cannabis, Adams only laughed in response. Silly question. Since taking office, Adams has lauded legal cannabis as being a potential cash cow for the city. In April, he floated the idea of installing cannabis greenhouses on top of the New York CHA buildings and hiring residents to tend to the crops. Hey, that sounds like a bad idea.
There you go, yeah. No, that would actually be pretty wicked. What? Once the state's licensing system is up and running, New York stands to generate more than $1.25 billion in cannabis tax revenue alone over the next 6 years. Oh, I think they're underscoring that, according to the governor's administration. But as the state has worked to get the licensing mechanics off the ground, unlicensed cannabis selling operations have cropped up at an increasing rate in the city this year. Oh, I'm not shocked. In and around Times Square, for instance, there are usually a half dozen brightly colored trucks hawking joints and edibles on any given day. And with cannabis possession now legal, police largely look the other way to the open pot market, as recently reported by the Daily News.
Adams said that there must be a focus on getting illicit dealers to enter the legal recreational bud system. We need to incentivize those who have their illegal trucks or have the trucks going on to show them that this is a better pathway. The goal is not to leave people behind.
Absolutely. And I mean, New York has been saying that since they legalized. I've really been enjoying watching them do what they do, because they seem to be doing it almost in a sensible way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's another thing that they're doing in New York to show that they're in support of cannabis. According to Marijuana Moment, it says here, New York taxpayer-funded ad slamming racist marijuana criminalization law airs during the NBA Finals. So they're serious. Yeah.
Yes. A first of its kind taxpayer-funded cannabis PSA aired in most of New York during an NBA Finals game on Thursday, boldly addressing the racially discriminatory harms of cannabis criminalization and highlighting steps that state regulators are taking to right the wrongs of prohibition. If
anybody doesn't know what PSA stands for, that's Public Service Announcement. However, one major TV station refused to air the spot. The Office of Cannabis Management has been rolling out cannabis PSAs in the lead up to the launch of the state's retail market, but this one was unique in its political focus, which has made all the more significant because it aired on nearly every local ABC affiliate in the state during Game 1 of the National Basketball Championship Finals.
Latino New Yorkers were 8 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis than white New Yorkers over the past 30 years. Black New Yorkers, 15 times more likely, the narrator says in the ad. And, continues on, white, black, or brown, data shows we all use cannabis at the same rate. Now, New York has changed course and legalized cannabis for adults 21 and over, it continues. We are building an equitable industry that invests in communities.
The ad is the final piece of a cannabis conversation series that's meant to promote public education around the state's emerging cannabis market, with other PSAs focusing on issues such as preventing impaired driving, the rules around public consumption, and safe storage of cannabis to prevent youth access.
There's so much education that needs to occur, the OCM Executive Director Chris Alexander told Marijuana Moment in a phone interview on Friday. There are assumptions, there's stigma related to the plant, there are assumptions about government, there are assumptions about the commitment even that we have here. So we thought the ad was important, as as is in line with the rest of the Cannabis Conversation series, proving that base level education to the viewer who's not as engaged as we are on the developments in the space, he said. While we're also telling folks that they should keep their cannabis stored away, we think it's also important for them to understand that we as a state are also recognizing the harms of previous policies and are taking significant steps to correct them.
It's always good to correct problems in the past from the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's doubling down. It's letting folks know that the investment and the commitment is real, and then hoping that they come back and tap in for more information, and they tune in with our office, Alexander says. We think it's important. It was important to start with this type of message to take on the issues head on.
Yeah, notably, the equity-centric ad did not air on one key affiliate station that reaches New York City audiences, the WABC-TV. A spokesperson for OCM said that the regulators have yet to receive an answer from the station as to why it chose to not promote it. Marijuana Moment reached out to WABC for comment, but representatives did not respond by the time of publication.
They don't want to say.
No.
Alexander emphasized that it's part of our mandate and our law that we run this broad, overreaching public education campaign, and we're continuously trying to push media partners to get some additional exposure.
And what's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, an understanding of our past, even when it's difficult, helps direct the way forward, and the public service advertisement we're debuting today during the NBA Finals speaks to that. Tremaine Wright, chair of the Cannabis Control Board, which provides oversights of OCM, said in a press release.
Yeah, Wright goes on to say that through this advertisement, we will shine a light on the disparity in enforcement and arrests that harm Black and Brown communities across New York. We're raising the awareness of New Yorkers around this critical issue and educating them on the cannabis law's mandate that we prioritize the work to address those harms and invest in revitalizing our hardest hit communities.
Melissa Moore, director of civil systems reform for the Drug Policy Alliance, said that advancing accountability for the decades-long racist cannabis arrest crusade in New York puts another nail in the coffin of the war on drugs that has devastated so many communities across the state. I agree.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
CCB also wants the opportunity to showcase its cannabis PSA campaign on the social app TikTok. But it was told by the company previously that it could not use the platform because of its existing ban on the use of the word cannabis. The department recently sent a letter to TikTok requesting a policy change for government cannabis-related ads that concern public education. I don't have TikTok, so I don't know anything about it.
Neither do I, but I just find it funny that they allow what they allow, but don't allow the word cannabis. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Meanwhile, regulators have been hard at work finalizing regulations for the adult use cannabis market that's expected to launch with retail sales later this year, a timeline that Alexander affirmed on Friday in the interview with Marijuana Moment. On Wednesday, for example, the CCB approved a series of proposed rules for packaging, labeling, advertising, and testing requirements. There's now a public comment period to weigh in on the proposed rules.
They also approved 16 additional recreational cannabis cultivator applications to help ensure the market has enough product when sales start, raising the total to 162. Governor Kathy Hochul signed a bill from Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Pebbles Stokes and Senator Michelle Hinchy to create conditional licenses in February. The intent is to allow existing hemp operators to get a head start on growing cannabis to meet demand for the forthcoming industry.
Regulators also advanced the rule in March to make it so people with prior cannabis convictions or whose family members have been harmed by criminalization will get the first round of adult use cannabis retailer licenses ahead of existing medical cannabis businesses, which I think is fantastic. A recent poll found that most New Yorker voters are against that proposal. Well, it's what better way to offer your quote unquote criminal dealer down the road a way into legalization, but to offer them to be one of the first people to get a license.
Yeah, yeah. And it says head of existing medical cannabis businesses. So it sounds to me like it's the compassion centers,
Hmm.
medical locations. They're already set up. They're already got product. And if they have to switch over to this legal product, there could be a way of the transition. But they
Yep.
got things already set up and ready to go instead of waiting. How long are they going to wait until the stores actually get open?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I'm fine with that. So all righty, well, we'll just wrap that story right there. All righty, but it's good to see that that they've got these ads going on out there and letting people know what's going on. Too bad about TikTok, but they'll get caught up in things, I think, eventually. Over time. Just like the other ones are, slowly
getting there.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Now, here's the next story. This is when I was talking about some of the patients. We've been talking a lot about the patient's access through some of these stories. This one here says that police can't search homes without a warrant just because they smell marijuana, proposed law says. So smell doesn't count?
Smell doesn't count, no. Baton Rouge, a proposal banning law enforcement from using the odor of cannabis as probable cause to search someone's home was approved by Louisiana legislatures. Representative Marcus Bryant's bill, which already gained approval in the House last month, was approved by Senate lawmakers this past Thursday.
Current laws allows officers to justify a warrantless search of a residence if they can smell cannabis. And now the bill goes to Governor John Bell Edwards' desk for final approval.
Yeah.
So that'd be sort of like the laws where they said that with driving. They could smell cannabis when they walked up to the car.
Yep.
So, this is the same thing. You can't just say you can smell cannabis around somebody's house. In order to do that.
It's the other day I went up to a reserve dispensary and I picked up some really amazing stuff and I did what I'm supposed to do. I take my little bag and I put it in the back seat where it was supposed to go, but my car reeked. I felt like Cheech and Chong diving down. I was in a movie because the smell was just wafting. I know it was. But thankfully, that's no longer a reason for them to search me.
That's right. Yeah. Not only the searching of the car can't be done, but Louisiana bill to protect employees from firing over medical marijuana heads to the governor's desk. So people can't get fired for using their medicine.
That's amazing. That's really phenomenal. Louisiana employees who use medical cannabis may soon receive much-needed protection from being fired, reported Marijuana Moment. Sponsored by Representative Mandy Landry of New Orleans, the House Bill 988 passed the Senate on Wednesday in a, get this, 26-8 vote.
Yeah. Nice and large vote. The legislation, which is now heading to the governor's desk, will also protect prospective hires from being discriminated against for the use of medical cannabis. Governor John Bell Edwards signed a bill allowing medical patients to legally smoke whole plant cannabis flower this year, just days after criminalizing the medical possession.
Wow. However, the new bill would not apply to certain occupations, including law enforcement and firefighters, as well as other public safety officials.
Yeah, they say there's 43,000 medical patients in Louisiana now. And it goes on to say here, there are a lot of people who don't want to take opioids for their long-term PTSD and pain management because of the high possibility of addiction to opioids, Landry says in the House committee last week. This has to be proved to be a better option than them. It is.
Yep. In the meantime, Louisiana lawmakers recently advanced 4 cannabis-related bills to the full Senate, aiming to relax the state's stiff drug policies.
Yeah, that's probably why we pretty well had 2 of them back to back because they're making changes, and that's good to see.
It's amazing.
Exactly. All right, up for our last story of the day. And this comes to us from the Marijuana Moment. And the headline says, Marijuana Coalition launches new campaign backing cannabis banking reform to promote equity. Sorry.
Equity, yeah. A coalition of cannabis advocacy groups has launched a campaign meant to promote education about the need for cannabis banking reform, highlighting what they see as the social and economic equity advantages of freeing up businesses in the industry to access traditional financial services.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Marijuana Matters, Minority Cannabis Business Association, Minorities for Marijuana, Medical Marijuana, and Women Grow have teamed up to create the Safe for Equity campaign, which is meant to push for expedient passage of the bipartisan Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act in Congress, which is known as the Safe Banking Act.
They want to see that legislation sponsored by Representative Earl Perlmutter enacted as part of a large-scale manufacturing bill that's currently being negotiated as part of a bicameral I didn't say that right. I'm not sure. Conference committee. While some advocates have criticized moving ahead with banking reform before comprehensive legalization is enacted, making the case that the incremental reform would principally serve deep-pocketed most white-owned corporations and banks themselves. The coalition is contesting the narrative with the new campaign.
Specifically, the groups are contending that small and women and minority-owned businesses would uniquely benefit from the modest banking bill, in part because it would provide them with the resources to more effectively compete and operate safely in what is currently a volatile and cash-incentive industry. It's an argument that Perlmutter has also made through his advocacy for his legislation, and he expressed gratitude to advocates in a press release about the campaign launch.
I appreciate Safe for Equity's support of the Safe Banking Act and their ongoing advocacy for federal cannabis reform, the congressman said. Safe banking is only one piece of the puzzle, but it is a critical piece of reform that underserved communities and small businesses need now. It's imperative that the conference committee solve this problem as soon as possible to begin to alleviate the threat of public safety and inequity, which threatens communities and emerging small businesses across the country, he said, referencing the conference on the America Completes Act.
Yeah, Perlmutter's office separately put out a press release on Thursday that quotes numerous congressional colleagues, including several who are serving on the key conference committee, supporting the passage of the Safe Banking Act as a long overdue reform that would address public safety, financial transparency, and equity. Amber Littlejohn, executive director of the MCBA, said that passing the cannabis banking bill would help address this core issue affecting countless small and minority-owned cannabis operators throughout the country.
By extending a safe harbor to banks, credit unions, certain payment processors, and other select financial entities to offer essential services such as loans, deposit accounts, check cashing, and electronic payments to state lawful cannabis companies, we are creating a sustainable future for small cannabis businesses and stopping the unjust criminalization of cannabis, she says.
Yeah. Part of the Safe for Equity strategy will to provide up-to-date information about the legislative status of the Safe Banking Act, and also feature stories of people who are actively navigating the complicated cannabis space with federal prohibition without access to traditional financial services that are available to other industries. That said, the coalition's website still prominently features an action case, its own brackets there. All right. Advocates have been fighting for years for sensible cannabis reform. Rose McCarthy, CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, said the opportunity to pass legislation around safe and equal banking for all in the regulated cannabis industry would be a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah. Courtney Davis, executive director of Marijuana Matters, acknowledged that enacting the cannabis banking bill will not repair all of the harms from the war on drugs. However, it is one of many tools that are essential to supporting individuals from historically disadvantaged communities in becoming successful entrepreneurs in the coming cannabis space. Gia Moran, president of Women Grow, echoed that point, stating that safe banking will provide the necessary access and secure banking services our business owners need to operate sound businesses.
But there's a consensus on the issue. There's always a but, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
With some advocates pushing back against the notion that the modest banking bill would effectively serve disadvantaged communities and small entrepreneurs, at least without significant revisions to provide more target relief. Shalyn Title, founder of the Paraboyle Center, told Marijuana Moment on Thursday that small cannabis businesses are struggling right now, and there is an opportunity to support them through incremental federal legislation. But the Safe Banking Act does not provide that opportunity, she says.
Despite assurances that the bill will help small businesses as written, it only helps banks, she argued. We'll keep collaborating on legislation that is robust and equitable for small businesses and the communities that have been targeted by the drug war. The conference committee held its first meeting on the America Completes Act last month, with multiple appointed conferences urging the body to attach the Safe Banking Act language in the interest of economic competitiveness and public safety.
But while the Safe Banking Act has passed the House in some form 6 times,
wow.
A key barrier is Senate leadership, which is working to finalize a bill to comprehensively end federal prohibition. A top aide for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer recently tempered expectations about the prospects of moving marijuana banking through the America Completes Act.
For his part, Representative Earl Blumenauer, an appointed conferee on the manufacturing bill, separately said that he feels tremendous momentum to get the marijuana banking job done through their negotiations. Asked by Marijuana Moment whether there are any specific equity-centered policies that he's discussed adding to the Safe Banking Act with Senate leadership, Blumenauer said he prefer not to go into discussions he may have had with Senate colleagues, and he put the onus on the opposite chamber to propose any specific changes that would make the legislation more palatable to them.
They have the opportunity to move something forward, and I welcome those effects. I'm perfectly willing to work with them as far as they can go, as long as it doesn't get in the way of problem solving, Blumenauer says. The standalone Senate revision of the Safe Banking Act currently has 42 co-sponsors, including 9 Republicans.
The reluctance on the Senate side was also the subject of a letter that Perlmutter sent to the leadership last month. In a previous statement to Marijuana Moment, Perlmutter pointed out that more than 2/3 of the conferees have already voted for or co-sponsored the Safe Banking Act. The congressman has even made a point to talk about enacting the reform legislation during committee hearings on ostensibly unrelated or wider-ranging legislation like a recent House Rules Committee hearing.
Despite recently saying that he's confident the Senate will take up his bill this session, Perlmutter I recognize that while he's supportive of revisions related to criminal justice reform, taxation, research, and other issues, he knows that as we expand this thing, then we start losing votes, particularly Republican votes. And we got enough votes in the Senate to do it as is.
Representative Maxine Waters, who chairs the House Financial Services Committee and previously listed marijuana banking as a legislative priority ahead of the conference, said that the bipartisan nature of the reform proposal is evident based on the fact that the House included it in the chamber's version of the manufacturing bill before it was removed in the Senate. Additionally, nearly a quarter of all senators sent a bipartisan letter this month urging that cannabis banking be included in the final bill.
The third highest ranking Democrat member of the Senate, Patty Murray, has taken special interest in the marijuana banking reform, describing it as a priority of hers as an appointed member on the bicameral conference committee. Meanwhile, an organization that represents state financial regulators from across the U.S., the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, is separately putting pressure on Congress to pass cannabis banking reform. Like it's just come on, get her done.
Yeah, it would be nice if they would, right? Banking associations representing all 50 states and 1 U.S. territory also sent a letter to Senate leaders in April that made similar points about the importance of enacting the Safe Banking Act. Last month, a coalition of cannabis regulators representing 40 U.S. states and territories separately explained to Congress what the current lack of access to traditional financial services means, not just for the businesses and the programs they oversee, but for the regulators navigating the federal-state conflict themselves.
Now, the Nonpartisan Cannabis Regulators Association, which doesn't take a stand on legalization itself, sent a letter to congressional leaders outlining areas of concern for their states' respective cannabis markets under the status quo of federal prohibition. But again, not everyone is accepting the idea that the safe banking alone will provide the relief and resources to disadvantaged communities that proponents are arguing it will.
Cannabis Regulators of Color Coalition has also weighed in on the cannabis banking conundrum, arguing in a Marijuana Moment op-ed that I know I'm tripping over the weirdest words, that the Safe Banking Act is insufficient. The group says advocates should push to add provisions to the bill providing interim safeguards for community financial depository institutions and minority dispository institutions, as well as measures to prevent predatory lending and promote loan availability for people from disadvantaged communities.
Meanwhile, the governor, attorney general, and other top officials in Washington sent a letter to congressional leaders last month again emphasizing the urgent need to pass cannabis banking reform as a public safety initiative. The number of banks that report working with cannabis businesses ticked up again near the end of 2021, according to the recent federal data. Like, this is just crazy, Cindy.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
I mean, like, and it happens everywhere. I mean, like, people that I know that have head shops have been kicked out of traditional banks. Head shops. I mean, you're selling papers and bongs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of our sponsors I know has had issues with the banks, like here in Canada. Never mind what's going on down there in the U.S. And like, it's almost as if there's the Safe Banking Act, and then there's this complete act that Schumer is pushing. So like, everybody wants something done. Why don't they combine these two together and get it done? Like, whatever's missing out of one, take it out of the other, whatever.
Yep.
Everybody wants it done. Like, all these banking associations, so on and so forth, that are writing Congress and says, let's do it.
Yep. The banks want it done. Senators want it done. I mean, I don't understand what's holding this up. I haven't understood what's been holding it up for a while now, right?
Yeah, well, as it said, 6 times it's passed the House. Well, when it passed the House at that point, Mitch McConnell was the leader of the Senate for the Republicans, and there's no way he was going to let that come before the Senate. Yeah. So now Schumer's got one, and the House has passed this thing, and Schumer's trying to do his own thing. And come on, guys, like,
just get it
do
done.
what's best, right, for the country, not whose name is on the friggin' bill.
Yeah. And it doesn't just affect their country. I mean, like, this is affecting.
No.
I mean, it hugely affects Canada and worldwide. So
yeah. Worldwide.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it does. It does affect the worldwide, the whole thing. So it's ridiculous. Well, Cindy, what's up for the rest of your day?
Oh, I am going to go to a birthday party, actually. A friend is turning 64, so we are having a little get together for him after work. Yes.
Nice.
How about yourself?
64 young.
64 young.
That's right. Good. Well, thanks for filling in for Rev Kelly this morning.
My pleasure.
I hope she's feeling better. I haven't gotten a report from her since before we got started. But yeah, it was just sudden. You know how things like that happen, can creep up and grab you. That's right. Hey, we're all patients, right?
That's right.
That's right.
100%.
All right. Well, that's our Reefer report for June the 6th, 2022, and from the Legacy420.com news desk. Thanks to our buds at BMA Hydroponics, Legacy420.com, DrBuckCTS.com, as well as Legacy420. In closing, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and please don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. Bye all.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.